Hi, everyone.
Hey there.
It's Alicia Davis
And Stacy Watson.
from Transformative Leadership Strategies.
That's us.
And change.
Change, change. Right, wrong song.
Wrong song.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We should not quit our day jobs, probably.
We should definitely not. So managing change is our topic for today because every organization, every leader that we are talking to, I mean, it's kind of life in general. We're always managing change, and it's very different when you're managing change at an organizational level, right, Stace?
It is. And whether that change is related to having leaders coming and going, maybe there's a change in the programs that are being offered, funding issues, political constraints, whatever it is, I think, in an organization, there's so many layers to change because there's not just the experience that each person is having,
right,
but it's the fact that you still have to keep the lights on. Like the work has to continue. And so even though sometimes I think change makes us want to crawl into bed and put the pillow over our head, we don't really get that opportunity when we're in organizations.
Nope. It's like, and what we've been talking about, what we always talk about as a framework is being and doing.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's, when you're managing change as an individual, it's very anxiety producing.
Absolutely.
It's very stressful. It's very, change is unknown, and we as human beings don't like unknown. And so there's an immediate feeling of anxiety. And then when you think about from an organizational perspective, there can be very much overwhelm.
Absolutely.
Right? Like as a manager, you're responsible for your stuff and then making sure your team's okay and then making sure everything continues and often making decisions without all the information.
It's true. And we were with an organization this week that's experiencing a fair amount of change. And one of the things that came up in our conversation there was that the feelings you're talking about can be sort of both and, right? So I can have all the feelings you just described of anxiety, uncertainty, maybe even pressure, maybe even sorrow if someone's leaving, grief that things are changing. And I can also be excited about the change that's coming and anticipated. And I think sometimes, I know I have this tendency where we can get very either or. Like if I'm sad, then I'm not a team player because I'm not excited. And I think allowing space for people to experience the wide range of emotions that come with change can be a really important tool for leaders.
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking about being, doing, and equity. I mean, the doing part is, there is always going to be execution of the plan.
That's right.
Like what you said just a few minutes ago when we were talking, it's you got to keep the lights on.
That's right.
You got to keep the programs running. You got to keep the payroll happening.
One foot in front of the other sometimes.
Right? And it can be like you have to see the big picture, and it's always just one step at a time.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you added the idea of how do we look at it from an equity lens?
Yeah, I think it's easy for all of us when we're experiencing change to kind of retreat a little bit into our own experience. Yeah. And as coaches, we see the value in really being connected to your experience and owning it and understanding it as much as you can. And it's also really helpful, and the reason I think that word equity is so powerful is it's a helpful reminder that the change that I'm experiencing might feel different to you, right? And the way that I'm reacting to the change is going to be different than your reaction potentially. And the word equity simply just reminds me that it's, first of all, not all about me. And second of all, to be aware and bring some sensitivity to the fact that others in the organization are also experiencing this change, and it may or may not mirror my experience, and it's fine that it's perfectly fine for them to have theirs.
That's right. So, and there's so many. I mean, that is just a very, very skimming the surface of what equity really means. But it is this sense of self-focus and other focus and not making any assumptions.
That's right.
Right? Like just really being able to try to have empathy and understanding and see things from as everybody's perspective as possible.
As much as possible. Right. And recognizing we never can do that perfectly.
Right.
So leaving space for people to just have their experience.
Right. Yeah. And for it to be a little messy.
And it will be messy.
Yeah. And the one thing that we want to just talk about is it's also about communication. And we'll talk more about that over the next, few sessions that we do here. And we have our nonprofit leadership roundtable coming up. So it's the second Tuesday of the month. And so our next one is February 11th. And
Yeah.
we are starting with communication and the foundations of communication.
Absolutely. Just getting a little bit back to basics around communication.
Because it's so critical through change, especially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think every organization we go and visit with, their top 1 or 2 issues has to do with communication.
Always.
So any of us, I think, can always just be benefited by having a little bit of time to really think about what is effective communication and what can I personally do to be more effective in my communication.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we call it communicate, don't alienate.
That's right. Communicate, don't alienate.
Inclusive.
That's
All right.
right.
So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.